live. I'll just give 30 seconds for everyone to join, like a minute or so. Is it nice weather out there in Chicago, Ian?
Yeah, yesterday was like 60, 70 degrees. So really enjoyable, but I expect it to switch back to the 40-degree weather again. That's what it does here. How about you?
It's really sunny for past 4 days in Vancouver. It feels like a summer for us.
I'm ready for it.
Me too. I think we can start right now. Welcome, everyone. Really excited to have everyone here. Today, we'll be talking about Azure Commitments Trap. And as a side note, NOPS is also launching NOPS Azure Commitment Management, where we manage commitments for Azure Cloud from now on. So if you are interested to get savings analysis or so, just let us know. We're happy to help you out. And yeah, just jumping into the session, there are like a few housekeeping things. The first one would be like, the session is for 30 minutes long, and we'll start exploring around like, Azure commitments, risk mitigation, and also the billing contract changes, and what kind of strategies we need to follow to adapt to these changes that are happening in Azure cloud, and which is like an evolving cloud at this point. And then we'll talk about like a real world playbook and scenarios and how and why and where we should get best benefits and best discounts along with risk mitigation. We'll take questions from the audience. You can just drop all your questions in the comments. Doesn't matter if you're on X, LinkedIn Live, or YouTube, just drop in the comments. We'll be able to see them here. And lastly, today's webinar will be recorded and it will be available on LinkedIn, so you can view it again or share it with your colleagues or friends. Without further ado, before going in there, I want to just introduce Ian. Ian, a quick introduction.
Yeah, thanks. So I've been with NOPS for a few months now. I'm the Azure Technical Product Manager. So I've been doing FinOps for about 7 years and specializing in Azure and AWS commitments for the past 4. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for joining us and sharing your vast knowledge of Azure commitments. A very common thing, with all the latest changes and latest announcements by Azure. The big idea is that Azure commitments in 2026 are not passive discounts anymore. That means they are active financial instruments. They keep changing, they keep evolving. Yes, when they change, there are certain type of limitations, certain type of things you can do, you cannot do. And there are multiple shifts happening at the same time, right? Especially in 2026. Especially the first thing, like volume discounts are gone. Exchange are becoming less reliable as a safety valve because we don't know when they might be gone and stuff. And Microsoft is also introducing new commitment models like database savings plan, AI models, AI commitments and stuff. And this whole AI category itself is like a new category for many enterprise companies or even small to mid enterprise companies, where it becomes a new spend category and they don't know how to manage it or how to commit for it or how long to commit for it. And so if you're treating your Azure commitments like a quarterly task, there is a very good chance you're going to be leaking money because of the changes that's happening, because of the new terms that they are changing and the contract changes and billing changes that they're doing and everything. So yeah, let's start here. For years, teams thought Azure commitments were pretty straightforward, savings plan, reservation, just like, buy some random commitments or just like basic random commitments by recommendations, and then revisit later, we're saving money and go on from there, right? Now, pretty simple and straightforward, sounds like it. But what changed? Why things are changing in Azure especially?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that's changed is the environment around commitments. It's not just the products themselves. The old model gave people more room for error. Today, between the MCA migration, pricing changes, exchange uncertainty, and fast-moving workload patterns, commit decisions have a lot more financial consequence than they used to.
Gotcha. I'm like, as a quick overview, right? Like, this will be about 25 minutes, right? And we'll be talking about multiple things. And as Ian mentioned, there are like different changes that's going out and how can we deal with these things, right? We'll walk through what changed in like Azure pricing in detail, like as Ian mentioned, and how these commitment instruments actually work today, and why strategies like, just set it and forget it will break in real environments, and what type of modern commitment playbook you need to adopt to, especially in this 2026 world, right? Let's move quickly here, but this is very important. where the broader pricing environment has changed, right? As I mentioned before, like volume discounts are gone. MCA migration is changing the billing structure, and the practical impact is very straightforward, and it's pretty this. You can't rely on the old negotiation model, right, which you had with Azure, to protect your Azure economics anymore. Especially in the FinOps space, it's not the same logic and same strategy that you need to follow anymore. And Ian, from a FinOps perspective, how does this matter and why does this matter?
Yeah, because volume discounts are going away, this changes the baseline, right? If your team assumes discounts will naturally show up through enterprise scale, through historical contract structure, you'll misread what your actual effective rate should be. And once you start layering commitments on top of that bad assumption, at the start, it creates downstream waste very quickly.
Yeah, exactly, right. Nothing is automatically optimized anymore, right? You actually need a commitment strategy that works for, especially for all kind of broader spectrum of audiences, and enterprise organization. Doesn't matter if you're scaling up massively or scaling down massively or so on and so forth.
Exactly.
And yeah, and these are the common instruments that people know, right? Which is common across all clouds. It's pretty straightforward. We have reservations, which gives you highest discounts and low flexibility. And savings plan, pretty similar concept, moderate savings but high flexibility. And now Azure has introduced database savings plan. This is something very exciting and new, as I've seen and observed with all clouds coming out with this new database savings plan, which we have seen with AWS coming out during the reInvent last year, and Azure just launching it recently in the past few weeks. Uh, these are the things that give you more flexibility and stuff, right? But they also give you a new way to think about these commitments. What's the biggest misconception you see here, Ian?
Yeah, I think it's people think flexibility automatically means safety, right? It really doesn't. Flexibility reduces one type of risk. You can change your SQL databases to something else, and that's all covered under the database savings plan. But the flexibility only reduces that type of risk. If you overpay for flexibility everywhere, it becomes its own form of waste. There are massive discount percentage differences between the database savings plan versus just reserving the database straight up through a reserved instance. It makes a drastic difference in the grand scheme of things. The real question isn't which instrument is best, it kind of which instrument fits which layer of spend.
And also, I think the important question, as you mentioned right now, adding one more point to that, how much risk you want to take on, right? It's not just about savings percentages anymore. It's not about 1 year, 3 years. It's not about reservations or savings plan anymore. It's about how much risk that your organization is willing to take to cover those, top 5-10%, that remaining 5-10% that is left out there, right? And
Exactly.
yeah, the common strategies that fail, right? This is a part that makes the Azure commitment management looks harder than it we say, right? The challenge is not about picking the right instrument. That's what we just determined, right? And the real problem is that environment keeps evolving, especially in this AI world, managed services, serverless, people moving from running 10,000 different microservices to one managed service, all gone, right? It's not the same world anymore that we're living in. And there are new demand curves that come in, new patterns that come in, and people have been doing R&D for past 1 year. Now they fail or succeeded. It's a different pattern today, right? And with all these things, there is a different economics that you will land into. And it's also true across all type of compute, right? It could be compute, it could be databases, it could be AI. It's true. Things change, things evolve, and we are in a very uncertain world right now. And what does most teams underestimate here in?
Yeah, so a lot like what you just said, they really underestimate how quickly yesterday's baseline stops being relevant, right? So there's so many different things, new technologies coming out every 2 weeks, every week, and your state changes with it, right? Migrations happen, teams adopt new services, workloads move regions, AI pilots suddenly become production workloads, and that's exactly why companies move to the cloud in the first place, right? If they want to stop using a legacy virtual machine or database, they can move off it quickly. That it gives the cloud gives them that flexibility, and that's why they move there. And your commitment should have the same flexibility, right? You want it to move as your environment moves with you. So, a commitment strategy built from a static snapshot starts to drift almost immediately from when you make that plan or make that reservation.
Exactly, right? That's why, your commitment management strategy can be a spreadsheet. And it's not something you revisit once a quarter, once a year or so. Especially let's assume you did a very beautiful forecasting model on a spreadsheet. Let's assume that your finance team came in and said, oh, 10% reduction in next 1 year or 6 months. Let's see how much risk I'm taking on, how much savings, or what is my ROI. Let's assume I add in a 10% growth rate. So you add these forecasting models and you basically say, okay, I think if I go up by 20%, if I go down by like 40%, this is where the baseline lands at, this is where I want to go ahead and buy, so on and so forth. But those things does not come into picture anymore at this point in time, right? Because there is drastic exaggerated changes that's happening where engineering teams are like evolving. They want to reduce their management, reduce their load on how much services they manage or what kind of services they deploy and stuff, right? And these things will be a kicker, when you come into commitments, they will basically throw all your predictions, all your modelings, all your forecasting out of the window right away. And you can't go with the same model and expect that, oh, I'll be in a positive side, I'll be on the winning side, or I'll have a positive ROI at all times, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly. And that kind of ties into the database savings plan. I mean, Microsoft kind of soft launched it, and it was available on the platform before they made a formal announcement. And if you had a whole strategy a month ago, that can change a lot of things with just that one rollout, right? And not to mention all the new VM types that are coming out, database types are changing. It's an ever-changing landscape, and you have to adjust for that.
exactly, if you don't have that adaptability and flexibility, at the same time lowering your risk and at
Yeah.
the same time maximizing your savings, this is like the perfect Venn diagram, I would say, that you would want to be at, right? Get the maximum savings possible, be as adaptable as latest commitments and latest databases, latest technologies, and maximize the coverage and savings at the same time, lowering the risk, right? This is like a perfect communion where you need to be at, where everything needs to be satisfied and everything needs to be at the best of the best, right? Creme de la creme is what we would call it, right? Being the best of the best. And being there is very tough choice for many organizations when going on these spreadsheets, right? And
Exactly.
yeah, and then this is like the framework we use internally, and I love this model. Ian, this is like one of the things you proposed, when we discussed long ago. uh, Layer one is databases and storage. That's what we call it. Uh, layer two is core compute. That's what we're looking at. All compute, like VMs and stuff. And layer three is peak AI or on-demand stuff that you have, like that remaining 5-10%, which you don't know how to cover. You don't know what's the ROI is going to be there or not and stuff. Why is this layer model so important here?
Yeah, it's all spend is not it does not have the same shape at all, right? You can see in the chart, some spend is stable and predictable, like core DBs, some is flexible but reoccurring, some is intentionally volatile, like the peak and AI, your PTUs, your burst, and some workloads you only run on during the weekdays, for batch processing, and then some workloads you can turn off on the weekends when no one's working. So there's a different approach to each of these layers, right? And if you're not trying to cover all three layers with one commitment type, you either lose savings or create risk. The layer model helps align the instrument to the behavior of the workload. That's really what we're trying to do here is see how your spend is working, see how your usage is, see all the different anomalies or changes, and try to apply reservations on top of that for the most flexible strategy while also maximizing savings.
I think just by as you discussed about it, one thing cannot fit everything. It's like one T-shirt cannot fit all, right? Kind of thing, right? One T-shirt size cannot fit all. So you have to think in a very creative way here. It's just statistics here. I believe that you just take one layer, do all types of permutation combinations, different type of reservations, different type of combination of commitments. You have these contracts that where you have additional discounts and everything, different timelines, different time frames, starting at different end dates, all these commitments. Increasing the flexibility and reducing the risk is what we want to look at, right? And I think it's all like a matter of numbers and a numbers game, and you play around with these different type of commitments and different type of combinations, right? And I would love to know more about it. Again, it depends on what kind of organization you are, how big of an organization you are, right? And
Exactly.
this is like one of my favorite concept, because it sounds so simple, so straightforward, and a no-brainer. But financially, it matters a lot, and automation-wise, it does make a huge difference. And that's what we were talking about from just before. I was making a nice base for this one. A lot of teams create something what we call a cliff. That means a $10 savings plan. Sounds very simple. When you think in a monthly cost, it's a $7,000 savings commitment, right? 7,000, $8,000 commitment. Sounds simple too. Oh, it's nothing for me. But when you look at the whole actual cost of it over 3 years, you're holding on to a risk of $250,000. That's a lot. That's where no company wants to be at. Especially like, hey, I'm buying it, but I'm having an ROI and I'm pretty sure I'm not changing anything for next 3 years. That's good. But you're still going to hold on to a risk of $250,000 just to save this. What if there's a way you get the same coverage, you get the same discounts, but you're not actually being risked for $250,000? That's the winning strategy I think I would want to look at and I want to be there, right? And the problem with that, the $10 savings plan is, you just buy one time, one click, you spend like 5 minutes, you think it is a win. The finance team comes, considers it as a win. It's all bells and whistles, and you're going to be like, super happy, you're in a dream la la land. But the problem is it expires in one go. 3 years in or 1 year in, the day comes in, it expires. And it expires by 100%. Then you're forced into a huge decision-making process again. Okay, it expired in 3 years, so now should I make the same $10 savings plan or not? Remember, in the past couple of years, AI has thrown off all the calculations, all the FinOps strategies out of the window massively. Now, doing the same mistake again for next 3 years, it's a risk, I would say. And why would you think laddering comes a huge important part of commitment strategy, and why is it such an important discipline, you think?
Yeah, it's laddering reduces decision risk. That is the main headline right there. If everything expires at once, right there on the left side of the slide, you're making a massive bet pretty much every 1 year or every 3 years based on whatever your environment looks like that month or the past few months. Laddering gives you the optionality and it gives you outs. It gives you the opportunity to make changes in your strategy monthly or even bi-monthly that reflect not only what your usage looks like months ago, but also what you're currently doing. Yeah, it sounds nice. A decision once a year or a quarter that you don't have to worry about, and you just buy the dollar value that Microsoft Azure Advisor or anything is suggesting, and you set it and forget it. But this is a static strategy and can quickly outweigh the benefits of the simplicity because your environment will change, it will grow, it will shrink, and you're left kind of holding the bag. And with the ladder strategy, some commitments are always rolling off, right? Which means you can keep adjusting as your architecture and your demand evolves. Laddering pretty much it enables you to have a set percentage of those commitments roll off every month, and you can adjust along with it, right? So you have a 10% decrease, you're only committed to it for a month or so, and with the decrease in your usage, you can let the reservation expire, and you're not paying for any uncommitted usage. It really gives you the flexibility that's missing with this all upfront strategy.
Exactly right. And if you think, I think laddering is something that, in my personal opinion, and looking at all the customers out there and talking to these big enterprise companies, they have done this strategy 2 years or 3 years ago. It's paying off today. That's where you have to be at. That means if you're starting off fresh, you have to be starting it off like 2 years ago, but you're late in the game. But doesn't mean that you shouldn't delay it even further. You should kick it off like right away, ASAP, right? Because the reason is that right now the combination that we are showing here is like, for example, of 1 year and 3 years. You can just ladder with 3 years. That means you can just start off the 3-year commitment starting from tomorrow. Every day, every month, every 2 weeks, you can do those ladders, right? It's like a routine. It's like a discipline you have to follow. It's like having a breakfast, having like a lunch kind of thing, where you have to follow it consistently for you to make sure your commitments are being fed and you're getting the maximum discount and lowering your risk, right? And doing that often, doing that very precisely with an evolving environment is where you need to be very careful at. And you can do all 3 years. You can do a combination of 1 year and 3 years. You can just do 1 year as well. It depends on how much risk, how much of a savings you want to take at, and what kind of trade-off you're willing to compromise here, right? Again, if you haven't started laddering, the high recommendation is that you should have started laddering like ages ago. But nothing is wrong and nothing is out of hands yet. You can still start laddering right now, right? And this is where NOps comes in picture, right? Taking into it automation, right? When we think about this as a system, we have to observe what's happening right now. When we say right now, looking into your environment every hour. You have a vast engineering team, you have no connection with them. They keep changing different things. They are running Kubernetes, they have different type of setup where they're like, suddenly picking up different type of VMs or instances and stuff like that to meet the application needs. And they're different things. And they change every hour or every day, so on and so forth. You need to observe that patterns. You need to observe and track them, right? And then you need to have a calculated model, which is nothing but a data model that looks at all these pieces of data plus all the commitments you have. So these are all the pieces of puzzle, which is the usage you have currently, which is the commitment inventory you got, and then finding the best way of combining them possible, which is nothing but adding up all these pieces of puzzle together to make a beautiful picture to get the maximum discount and low risk is what the calculation or data modeling does, right? And then execution is the other important part where you have to execute all of it before the hour ends or before even any inefficiencies being happening, right? That's where you have to have a model that does all these three in a matter of seconds and maximum of minutes. And this has to be done on an active basis, not once a month, not once a year or something. This has to be done every day, every hour if possible. And from FinOps perspective, Ian, why does automation matter here a lot? Now we just talked about it. How does it matter and why does it matter a lot?
Yeah, it's basically because the complexity is now too high for manual review cycles, right? There's so much data that goes into this. You have massive environments, you have different savings instruments. There are over 30 different products in Azure that you can get a savings discount on. There are different expiration profiles, different savings rates, new product categories like AI. Governance just changed, like we saw on the first few slides. It's changing from an EA to an MCA model. And you pair that with varying usage across your whole environment, and it's almost too much data to just make a static decision on. You have to automate it. If you're still managing all of that manually, you're almost guaranteed to be late, and you can't really do it once a year. It has to be a constant process, refining it and making decisions. And that's where, our automation process comes in, right? It
Exactly.
analyzes all the data and it gives you the best recommendation going forward based off previous usage and anticipated changes.
Exactly. And this, as you said, this cannot be done like once a year, not quarterly, not manually, definitely not through a stale spreadsheets that has like a very basic forecasting model, or doesn't matter how advanced forecasting model or uh, spreadsheet model you got. It has to be done continuously looking at what's happening in real world, because again, theoretical and practical are always a different strategies, and I can have like my spreadsheet way model way ahead of time, but if it does not match with reality, it's a loss, right? And it's a very here's the reality, right? Looking at it in large environments, especially the organization we deal with, the cost of delay is real. That means they think they need to start laddering and they still take forever to make a decision or something sometimes, right? And it's not just because of one catastrophic decision, it's just because of these tiny little inefficiencies that compound over the time every hour, and this makes a huge value there. What's the most common failure mode you see in here?
Yeah, it's actually waiting. There's a quote: "If you choose not to decide, you still made a choice," and it's pretty important, right? Teams wait for the perfect visibility. They wait for the environment to stabilize. They wait for one more month of data. You wait to talk to the whole team, but the environment doesn't stop changing while you wait, and it doesn't stop incurring costs either. So the delay becomes a decision in of itself. If your previous savings plan that expired was saving you 30% on, let's say, $100,000 of usage, and you wait a month for all the parties to decide what the next best step forward is, you're giving up $30,000 in savings that quick, over 30 days. It changes that fast.
That's like
And
a
that's
trap,
one of
right?
the problems.
That's like a trap. That sounds like a crazy trap that nobody wants to be in, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. It sneaks up on you quick.
Yeah. And and as you said, Azure commitments in 2026 does not sound like a stale static commitments anymore. They have to be active financial instruments that you have to be continuously reviewing and have to make quick decisions so that you're not losing anything anywhere because of the contractual changes or the type of hardware changes that you're having or anything like that. And it's not background discounts anymore as well. And if you manage Azure at scale, right, you have to treat them that way. Like, you have to have a commitment management solution or a strategy that thinks at scale, does automation, or does in-house at scale without losing any money. Again, it's a portfolio problem, right? The pricing has changed over the time, and billing contracts has changed over the time. Flexibility is valuable, and it has a cost. Like, when you want flexibility, you either have to compromise on the savings, or you might want to compromise on the risk. You want to look at which one, or you want to go with somebody like NOS, where you're not compromising on anything. And not a single strategy will work for all types of workloads and all type of environments. And static strategies that you have right now will be adrift. And laddering can reduce your risk, right? Which we have seen just now on the picture and the numbers we were talking about. And automation is also successful, right? It has to be essential, and it is successful if you use it properly. Any final thoughts in here?
Yeah, I think just to sum it up, commitments are no longer just about buying discounts, right? It's about managing risk. You want to preserve your flexibility and make sure your cloud economics stay aligned to how your environment is actually changing day to day.
Exactly. Yeah, I think if you're on Azure, and if you're like managing commitments and have a huge spend, or looking to for automations and benchmarking or any of that kind, or if you want to know what's the status of your profile, looking at it, and we can also give you like a complete analysis at no cost as well, where we do like a nice consulting on benchmarking and also reviewing your savings and reviewing your whole commitment profile. We are absolutely happy to take a look at it. And just please reach out to me or any of our colleagues, and we all are happy to help. Jumping into questions and comments, if you just have any questions or comments, just drop them in the comments, and we will be able to see them here. Looks like we don't have many. Oh, looks like there is one on a different platform here. Let me just pull it up. Okay, let me just pull it up here. It says we have been using the savings plan because they are more flexible, but are we actually leaving savings on the table? When should we use reservations instead?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, savings plans are sometimes the obvious choice. If you don't want to put too much thought or work into it, they cover all the VMs in your environment across several regions, and in that aspect, it would be a good choice. But it also has a lot lower savings percentage rate than a reserved instance or a reserved virtual machine. And so it's better to use a reservation instead of a savings plan when workloads are truly steady state, right? For those production workloads, for things that have been there for a while, those known virtual machines that are staying, right? And you want to make sure that they have a consistent utilization percentage, and you can almost double your savings by using a virtual machine reservation versus a savings plan. So it does really add up after a while if you're confident in the usage of that virtual machine.
Gotcha. We also have one more question. Hope that answers the question around like savings plan and how to make it more flexible and stuff. This is more around AI, Ian. Let me just pull it up here. AI spend feels unpredictable. How do we commit to Azure OpenAI or GPU workloads without locking ourselves in too early?
Yeah, so this is a tricky one because it's new, and the reservation aspect of AI is new as well. So it's mostly around the consistent workloads as well, right? You guys use let's say like $5,000 a month or something on AI spend, but it changes every day, right? You probably wouldn't use the same AI workloads on the weekends. So the best strategy would be going and reserving the base layer first with the PTU reservations, right? Your proven baseline. And that will give you the bulk of the savings and ensure high utilization. And then from there, you can see how your AI usage has been changing and try to layer in a higher savings percentage reservation on top of that to ensure the highest discount while ensuring that you keep your utilization as high as possible.
Awesome. Hopefully that answers the question that anybody would ask here. Again, if you want a quick benchmarking or analysis that you want to look at how you're doing in commitments or your risk profile on commitments, we are happy to have a look. Please reach out to me or any of our colleagues or Ian as well. We're happy to help you and take a look. Have a wonderful day. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks.